making time.
Well, thank you so much for the last time we spoke was a couple of years ago, and you did an amazing job on that. You really did. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate your kind words and for you being so open and honest during that chat. That was great.
Thank you. Well, I was surprised when I got when Tatiana said Andrew wants to do another interview, and I thought, okay, well, I wasn't sure. What we'd be talking about, but I'm sure you've thought about it.
Yeah, this is a different format interview. So this is called a confessional thing where it's a bunch of kind of unrelated questions about you and your life and times,
Oh,
which we'll get
great.
to. So it's a bit more free format with less narrative focused than the last one. But before we get to that, Tommy, I just want to say I was watching your most recent interview with Rick Beato before we got on here, and I loved it. And it's so like your comments towards the end of that chat about his approach to interviewing, what he's done for music, for people who watch things on the internet, it was very true. I really highly regard him as a passionate music fan who has a great literacy and ability to share that with his many, many followers.
Rick he not only has a great way to get information to people that they don't even realize they would love, and all that. But he says things to people who are not musicians who tune into him because they get where he's coming from, and he doesn't it doesn't go over your head. And I really like that about him. And yeah, not last weekend, but the weekend before, I was doing a guitar camp with George Benson, and Rick Beato was the moderator. So he interviewed me, George, Corey Wong, Lee Ritenour, Al Di Meola, Steve Lukather, Stanley Jordan. I mean, it was just a fantastic camp, and we all had a great time together. But the day I arrived, which was the Friday night, uh, and he was about to do the interview with George. He asked me as soon as he said hello. He said, "Can we talk tonight? Can we do an interview tonight?" And they're already. I had no idea that they were going to do that. So I had just flown in to Arizona, driven straight to the resort, and went straight to the where all the artists were together on stage as a kind of orientation for all the students and all the hangers on. So it was a lot of fun. But so there was no preparation. I just showed up at the room that he had set up, and we got a sound and everything, and said, okay, ready, and then away we went. It was just like straight off the cuff. There were no stops or starts. It was everything was just as it went down.
Yeah, beautiful. I don't know if you're the kind of artist to read comments on YouTube videos. It can be a very fraught kind of situation, but if you are feeling so inclined, I was scrolling through, reading through the comments on the Rick Beato chat you had, and there's just so many kind and beautiful things said about both of you there. So if you're ever kind of feeling low, maybe go to the comment section there and you'll get a little boost from
Thank you.
people saying nice things. There was
Right.
one thing that you said to Rick that I found really, really fascinating, though, and I wanted to start here, which is that recently you said you elected to spend 3 days immersed in Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
which is a surprising thing for, if I can be so blunt, an older person to say, because
Sure.
I write for people who are older than me. I write for the Australian newspaper, older audience. A lot of people tend to disparage or dismiss younger artists such as Taylor Smith.
That's exactly what
Taylor
they did
Swift.
to the Beatles, to you name it, to just about every artist worth their salt. Older people. I can remember when my mother said to me, "Don't listen to that. It's rubbish." She's talking about the Beatles, you know, because she thought it was, evil rock and roll music, and And then many years later, I'm playing in the Civic Theatre in Townsville, and my mother's at the show, and she comes backstage, and she says, "What was that beautiful song where you played all these harmonics and blah blah blah?" I said, "That was a Beatles song called Michelle." So anyway, but the see, I'm the type of person that the Taylor Swift getting where she got didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen overnight. It happened by how hard she works, how good she writes, and the good people around her and all that. And her records sound so good on radio. They're just mind blowing, right? It's not my cup of tea, and I don't have a Taylor Swift record at home or anything like that. But um, when I hear her music, I'm always impressed. And what I did was I was listening on Sirius XM, and it was her channel called Taylor's Version. And she was talking about her new album that she was going to release called the Poets, something Poets.
Should Poets Department.
Yeah. And she played a couple of tracks from that record, and I thought, holy hell, I got to listen to this. And then the album came out the next day, and that's all they played. So that's all I listened to. And I got to know the songs. What I was looking for was an idea for a chorus of a song of mine. I was
Mm.
looking for I was looking to see what is it she does that just like reaches out and grabs you. And what it was this. There's a lot of words going on in her music, not in all of it, but in a lot of the, she's very clever and there's a lot of words going on. And then when the chorus comes in, it's like almost one note and the chord's changing and the note keeps coming at you, the same note, the same message. So I thought, oh, how can I, and that was the idea. So this song I wrote called The Drowning Heart, which I played on the Rick Beato thing, the chorus, da 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 da, and it's just the same note over with the chords changing underneath, and that was a direct influence from her, and I don't know whether I would have thought of that or not, but I know I needed to immerse myself into something else, and I'm happy to do that, and I don't really care what people think or say, you know, oh, you couldn't listen to that crap, could you? I know people who say, oh, you don't want to listen to that machine. They call her a machine or whatever. And I just say flat out, I love her stuff, and they're like, "Pfft," you know, so
A really powerful thing, and I think it shows how open-minded you are as an artist and songwriter, that you
I
want to
hope
keep
so.
your ears open for inspiration. You want to hear what's popular, what's moving people so that it may
Right.
work its way into your own art, right?
Well, exactly. But what you said there about you want to know what people are doing now. It's not that I want to try and appeal to what people are doing now. I still play whatever I play and write whatever I write, and it has no time. You can't say, well, that sounds like it was written in 2015. You can't say that. It's timeless music, and I'm just trying to write the best I can and be creative in a spontaneous kind of way. I like when I wrote, as I said to Rick, I said, I started out with this Billy Joel idea, and then I moved to, Nirvana, these chords, and then I wanted a chorus. I listened to Taylor Swift, and I was piecing it together from some good influences. They were all different, but they were all good.
Uh, like a bowerbird, right? Making your nest from all different materials.
Exactly. A bowerbird. Exactly. Well,
So I appreciate that's a great little tangent. Thank you for humoring me and indulging me in that. We are speaking ahead of your Australian tour in a couple of months' time, and
Yeah.
I thought we'd to stick with that kind of idea. I'm curious, Tommy, how has your performance, sorry, how has your relationship with performing live changed across the years?
Well, I think, well, I'm less afraid to sit down now. You know what I mean? When I was younger, I only sat down to play one song or something, something that I had to like concentrate and do this, Uh, other than that, I was on my feet moving around. Now, I I usually play the first two songs sitting down, then I stand up. And uh, and if I had to play more sitting down, it would make no difference to me now. But I still have broken ribs. I fell on stage in Toronto in the middle of October. I was playing. I got to the hall called the Massey Hall in Toronto, which is like playing the Opera House in Sydney. It's like a big, big, beautiful hall. Gordon Lightfoot's, home turf. And anyway, the crowd were going off. The lights went down. The crowd were really going off, and I come running out, and I'm like running around and waving to the crowd, and I started skipping sideways, and I just went boom straight up. I just fell straight down, and I've never hit the ground so hard because it all happened so quickly, and I just as I was falling, I just grabbed my guitar like that and held it up and just took the whole force of my body on this arm. And I'd never hurt myself so badly, and I hadn't even played a note yet. And the cheering of the crowd slowly got quieter and quieter as they realized this is not a stunt. I've hurt myself. And so I was trying to get a breath. I was trying to, get some air. And it took me so long to get to my feet because I was so shaken up and I was trembling like this. And so my body was in a kind of shock. I got to my feet and I got to the microphone, and people in the audience were so nice. They were singing out, take your time, don't hurry, take your time," like that. And I got to the microphone and I said, "I don't normally do my own stunts." It's all I could think to say. And people laughed and applauded and all that. And then I I wanted to get playing, but I didn't feel like I could play what I wanted to play. I was going to start with the Jolly Swagman and like hose them out right from the start. But I was still trembling and I wasn't feeling good. And I sat down and plugged in and I went into Windy and Warm and I played it nice and steady. And I felt my breathing coming back okay. And by the time I got to the end of the song, I said, I think I'm okay, and I stood up and then I played the first set. It happened to be the tour where we'd chosen not to have an opening act, so I played two sets. So in the intermission, an ambulance guy was waiting at the side to look at me, and he was feeling me, and he said, well, the way you fell, you probably got fractured ribs. And it was already starting to hurt. It was starting to pain. And when I breathed, it hurt like hell. Anyway, so I went back and played the second set, and then I ran off stage and went straight to the hospital, and they X-rayed me, and I had two fractured ribs. They weren't broken, but they were fractured. And so they gave me a prescription for some pain meds, and I got back to the hotel and tried to get a bit of sleep. And the next morning, I made the decision to keep going because I had six more shows to do on that tour. And the pain was pretty extraordinary by that time. Anyway, I uh, I did five more shows, and after the fifth show, I went back to my dressing room and suddenly something set me off and I sneezed and broke both the ribs just by sneezing.
Ugh,
I had no idea that that could happen. And so it's because of my age that I'm still not healed. I'm still struggling with this, and it hurts like hell. But I've been playing shows. I've been flying everywhere. I've been to Australia. I had Christmas with my daughter in Sydney, and I flew out there and I taught her how to use a boogie board, and we swam a lot, and I got dumped by waves and all that stuff. And when I got back, I had some serious pain to deal with. And I had another X-ray right before I left to go to Phoenix to the George Benson camp. And my doctor said, well, it's not healed and it's going to take a while. You got to slow down. And so I still haven't slowed down because I got work to do.
goodness, what a story. I mean, I'm glad to hear that you were okay in the moment in Toronto, and I'm sorry to hear that it hasn't healed.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're not following doctor's orders, shall we say,
I'm
because you're not taking it easy.
well, well, yeah, no, I'm not following doctor's orders, but what I did is after I broke the ribs, I had to postpone all the shows from November and move them to February. And so that happened, and I had the whole month of November off, basically.
Mm.
And I wore a rib belt, and uh, I did everything I could to heal, but um, I'm not 21, so my healing is not as good as when I was 21, you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, and I hope that the pain is at least tolerable and manageable, and that you're
Oh,
not.
absolutely. I've got some new American drugs that are just take the edge off it, so it's okay.
Mhm. Well, I should mention after we spoke a few years ago, I saw you play here in Brisbane at QPAC at the concert hall there. Was
Yeah.
absolutely in love with what you did there. It's such a joy to watch you play, and I wanted to ask you about that because your joy for playing music is just infectious. You seem to enjoy it more than just about any other artist I've seen on stage. What does playing live for an audience do to you
It's
mentally?
it's everything to me, you know. Uh, as much as I enjoy playing, even just for my own pleasure and all that kind of stuff, there is nothing greater, no greater thrill for me than to play to people, you know. That playing for yourself is okay. And of course I'm listening to everything I'm doing, and I'm making sure that everything's in tune, everything's in time, and I'm trying to do the best I can. But at the same time, I'm flying that kite up in I'm getting the air to take it and take me with it, you know. And that's what I get from an audience. I get that, holy shit, anything's possible, you know. And I've just had this last week. We did one show in a place called Irvine, which is right near the John Wayne Airport, south of LA. And holy smoke, it was just really great. The audience were amazing. And then we were supposed to play in LA, and of course that had to be moved. And then I played some other shows, but um, playing playing for an audience is the greatest thrill that I know. And uh, the older I get, the more I want to really kick some butt, you know. The more I want to get out there and really go for it. You know, I take a lot of risk, when I get out there, especially in songs like Guitar Boogie. I just let it fly and see what I can come up with absolutely on the fly, because I believe that that's what people want to see. They don't want to see you doing your comfortable, well rehearsed show that you can play flawlessly. They don't want to see that. They want to see a guy risking everything to give them a good time. I believe that's what, if I go to see another artist that I really admire and I think they're coasting, I get pissed at them, you know. So I never coast out there ever.
Yeah. That desire to kick butt, is that related to growing older, sensing that you have less time than you did as a younger man?
Not necessarily. It's always been in my blood ever since we were little. I
Mm.
mean, Phil and I took no prisoners when we played together. It was all or nothing, And when I had my band, holy smoke, there were nights where we'd come off stage and we'd be just like, this is so great.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, even like when I had my band and I was playing electric guitar a lot more, and I'm talking about way back for in Determination, the Journey, and all that period in the early '90s. Um, I mean, I used to run around the stage like a kid, and then I jump up on the riser and play with the drummer, and then I jump up on the keyboard riser and play with it, and I was all over the place, and that's how I liked it. Um, and there are people who would say, how are people going to take you seriously if you're always running around? You're supposed to be a serious musician. I said, no, no, no. I want to have fun out here. And when I'm having fun, the audience is having fun. You know, I had some great friends who were my managers for a while, a very dear friend, and they're still very dear friends. But I did this show in Melbourne when I first moved down there and got my band together after I moved from Sydney to Melbourne in 1990. And I did this show, and they had just taken over my management and everything. And it was a wonderful night, and it was full of good jokes, a good timing, and just had a lot of fun with the audience, and it was great. And when I came off stage, they just kind of said to me, "Look, you got to stop all this stuff. You don't see Eric Clapton out there telling jokes and making fun with the audience.
Mm.
How are people going to take you serious? And it kind of threw me for a while because I know I had to trust what they had to say. But if I don't be myself out there, how am I being true to my audience? You know?
Yeah, very good point.
Mm. So some people over here, especially serious journalists, when they say, "And what can the audience expect from you?" And I usually say, "Well, there'll be a few songs between the jokes."
I find that such a lazy question. What can people expect from your show? It's like it's a really basic question, and I try my very
Yeah, it
best
is.
not to
Yeah.
ask.
Well, they can expect to be surprised.
Yes. Hey, while I've got you, I've had my mind on the electric guitar, particularly this last week or so. I've been writing this essay on, kind of tied to the 70th anniversary of the Fender Stratocaster, which was last year. But just
Oh,
thinking about in general, like what is the role of the electric guitar in a culture where rock and roll music in particular is not ascendant and has not been for some time? I'm just curious, you are primarily an acoustic guitarist these days, I would say, but you have a vast history in playing all sorts of guitars. What do
hmm.
you think, from your perspective, what is the role of the electric guitar in 2025?
Oh, well, I see most people who play electric guitar now are trying to sound like the 60s and the 70s. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you've got Joe and Steve, Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, who have that genre of guitar playing, and then you have other people in bands who are trying to get a definitive 60s and 70s kind of sound. So to me, like when I look at a Fender Stratocaster and a Fender Telecaster, I see two of the most perfect things ever invented. I mean, I can't really beat, no, in my eyes, you can't really beat a Telecaster or a Stratocaster because they're so perfect in every way, and they're so um, versatile. They're practical. They're soulful. They're everything, you know. And so to me, I don't think anyone's really doing much new. Nothing really new and totally different for the guitar has come along since the Police. You know, Andy Summers changed electric guitar for everyone. Um, and he doesn't really get any credit. And I don't think I've heard anybody say what I just said, but it came out of my stream of consciousness right now. And that is that really that big sound, the jangly telly sound with a chorus on it and all that, that was part of the new sound, you know. And I can't tell you how many thousands of commercials that I played on back in the late 70s, early 80s, where I was asked, can you make it sound like the Police? You
Wow.
know, can you make it sound like the Police? And all that meant was put a stereo chorus on it and find a nice chord, like a nice, all that stuff. Uh, find those suspended chords and all that sort of stuff, you know. So uh, just to comment on the guitar in this day and age, most people are still looking for a good traditional sound. There still hasn't been a better sound than a great 50-watt Marshall amp with a Les Paul or a, a great Fender Vibrolux with a good Telecaster. There still isn't a better tone than that in my eyes.
Isn't that amazing? Like, I think that's absolutely true. And isn't that amazing that despite all the advances we've made in society and culture and technology elsewhere, that kind of sound and those combination of instruments and tools, they work together perfectly then and now.
Well, you know, a guy like The Edge has every sound. You know, he has every sound known to man, and it's all at his disposal because he can afford to have all that equipment and all those people under the stage to click buttons and turn knobs and do things for him while he interprets the songs. And it's a fabulous thing he's uh, really created, but it's still based on a Fender sound. That's
Hmm.
mostly, you know. So,
Thank you for indulging me in that little tangent. I mean, I do have a whole bunch of questions that I haven't even got to yet, but I should ask you a few like confessional type ones. So I'll start with this.
okay.
What what surprised you about becoming a parent?
Um, how hard it is. Yeah. I can now say that everything about life is easy except raising children. That's hard. It's you second guess yourself all the time, and you make a lot of mistakes. And hopefully you learn from the mother teaches you so much when you're the father. I learned so much from the two ladies I was married to at different times, of course. Um, and yeah, having children is a big responsibility. And you know, if you're going to do something, if you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. You know, you can't just not show up. That doesn't happen, not with kids.
Tied into that, um, what's the hardest thing about juggling a career in the performing arts with parenting?
With parenting, well, you have to make peace with the fact, and you have to be honest. You know, this is what I believe helped me to survive being divorced the first time, and I knew that that I was not going to stop touring and playing because I was accused of being an absent father, and it really hurt me. And so, but eventually I had to admit this is who I am, this is what I do, and you're going to have to be okay about it. I'm going to see you as much as I can, and I'll stay in touch with you as much as I can. And when I finish working, I'll come and see you. Um, but I'm not the type of person who can get a 9 to 5 job and just come home and put my slippers on. That's not me. That's not who I am, and you already know that. So I had to call a family meeting with my when my girls were much smaller, and I had to just lay it out like that. This is what Daddy does, and Daddy does this because it's important, and it's going well. So you're living in a beautiful house and going to a good school in a very expensive country called England. And I have to work really hard to make that happen for you because that's what your mother wants, you know? So that's fine. So yeah, I had to find a way of having and telling everyone straight, flat out, you're going to have to be okay about it because I'm not going to stop touring. This is what I do.
Did that kind of honesty help the situation ultimately?
It did. It
Mm.
helped a lot. Um, um, I mean, I still every now and again, when I find out that something's going on and I wasn't there to help, I'll always say, I'm sorry, I wasn't there to do my part. I make sure that I always do that, you know.
Mm. That's
So
the that's a really thank you for being so upfront about that, Tommy. You've really captured and highlighted there the tension between an artist who is in demand and who has an adoring international audience and the people at home who need you. Like the tension between those two things, that's one of the most dangerous aspects or the most challenging aspects, perhaps, of being a touring artist. Would you agree?
well, yeah, it almost killed me, but that's for sure. Guilt and feelings of guilt and shame, really fueled my drinking and drugging and stuff like that. And I hated myself for it, but I loved everything when I was on stage. And I just had to I had to find the answer to that and find my peace, and stop beating myself up.
Mm.
So I don't shut the door on the past. I keep the door open, because I can help other people uh, in their lives by what I've gone through. I can tell them how I survived it and what the answers are. You know.
Mm. That what you said earlier about calling a family meeting just to lay it out and say how you see it and what we've spoken about previously regarding your addiction and things like that. Would you agree with that statement, which could be seen as kind of a cliche, but maybe it's true that honesty is the best policy? Is that right?
It's the only policy. Yeah. It kind of sets you free, and um, I'm I'm never afraid to just say it like it is, because um, I don't have time for tiptoeing around on eggshells. Let's just get to the point and save ourselves some tiptoeing. Let's just get to it.
Hmm. Okay, thank you. Changing the subject slightly, um, do you believe that hardship is necessary to create great art?
Yes. Hardship in everything is necessary. because what comes from hardship is peace and uh, a good feeling in the knowledge that you've been through a lot and you made it through to the other side, and all these things were meant to shape you somehow, you know. Um, I can't say that I've ever felt like giving up, even when things, when my world went upside down, you know, I still didn't want to give up. Um, I've never really considered, well, you know, I've been doing this a while. I should hang it up and you know, just go and be granddad and live up the road from my little ones and sim, you know, I'm like, it's not me. I'm like, it's 2025. Let's kick some ass, you know. That's me, you know.
What do you think drives that for you? Because I'm sure you have plenty of friends, family members your age who all they wanted for years and decades perhaps was to get to so-called retirement age and just kind of relax. That
And
clearly isn't
then
you. What is it about you that kind of shuns that idea?
um well, I mean, things like you know, going to the beach every day, going fishing, taking my time, you know, all that sort of stuff. It's all it's so attractive and so nice, but it's not as attractive as a full house. Um, and besides, you know, I'm not at a point where I feel I can hang it up, you know, because I'm starting to get somewhere with it. And I'm starting to realize, holy shit, this is fantastic. You know, as much as you know, people couldn't imagine that, but it never gets old for me. You know, I can do 300 shows in a year, and I've had a couple of days off, and I'm already thinking about, well, when are we getting back out? You know, so um, it's just how I am. You know.
Is the engine inside you that drives you to want to do that and to have the ability to do that, and clearly the international demand to people for people that want to see you do that, and you're giving the people what they want.
Well, that's a pretty good statement. I'm giving the people what they want. I'm thinking about this the other day. I was talking with Steve, my tour manager, and I said, you know, we are so lucky because we make a sound and do something that no one else does. And people love what we do. And I just can't believe it. There's a million players out there who all, you know, play so great and all this sort of stuff. But, you know, we just we just fit in a great area. Like I'm not stuck in, you know, playing clubs, and I'm not thinking, oh, if I don't get to arenas, I'm not successful. You know, I could care less about that. Uh, I love where I am because I employ four people, right? So they get paid whether I work or not. So that's a business thing, right? I've got good management and agents and blah 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 and all that, and I play everywhere from like 3,000 seats down to 300 seats. You know, I play all types of places. Sometimes in Germany and China, I play standing only rock and roll clubs where the whole crowd is like, you know, you think it's an AC/DC concert, massive PA and lights, and I come out there just on my own and that's it, you know. So I get to do that. I get to play the Opera House in Sydney. Uh, I get to play some, you know, iconic smaller venues, and we love the fact that we can just go into a big place and play a show. We can go into a little place and play a show and enjoy it, you know. And I love the fact that I can get in my car and go down to the supermarket and go shopping. I can go across to Starbucks. I can go to the Chinese restaurant, and people say hello, but you know, no one's screaming and calling the police. It's just, you know, I'm invisible out there, and I love that. You know, I'm not looking for fame at all. I'm looking to do a good job, make a good living, and try to keep creating. Um, and maybe along the way, drop some M&Ms so other people, other young players can follow my M&Ms and say, this is what I did. And if you work as hard as I did, it might work for you too.
Hmm. What color M&Ms?
Oh, I believe in all of the colors, you know. I don't just want the blue ones.
Very good. Well, given that you love touring and you have spent much of your life doing it, what have you learned about how to keep yourself entertained and engaged and frankly not bored? Because as you well know, much of touring is 22 hours of waiting around. How do you avoid the
Hurry up.
kind of tedium that can occur there?
Well, first of all, um, I know how to rest. I know how to relax, and I don't need a lot of stimulation as far as, you know, like uh, to me, uh, reading a book is far better than watching a show or you know, I like watching documentaries. Um, and I have Netflix on my laptop, and so I every now and again I'll watch a movie, and I might have four goes at watching it. I might get 20 minutes into it and turn it off, and then I'll watch the rest later, and that kind of stuff, you know. Um, and usually my whole team and I, we're all mad coffee drinkers. So, you know, Zach, my lighting director, who is also uh, he's just a wizard with everything, and we'll drive into a town, and Zach will text and say, meet us at this coffee shop, blah blah blah. Here's the address, and we'll follow the address and meet him there, and he will have you know, done the um, research and found which coffee shop would be really good, and we all meet there, and then we'll sit there and talk, and you know, well, I suppose we better go to work, you know. So, you know, there's a lot of good stuff, and like um, basically, when I walk out this door and go on tour, once I leave, I go to work. You know, I'm there to work. I'm very rarely ever a tourist. You know,
Hmm.
if I'm in a city like Vienna or Paris or something like that, uh, and there's a day off, of course I'll go around town and uh, look at things that might interest me, or go and see someone else play or something like that, you know. But other than that, when I'm on the road, my number one priority is to stay healthy. So I've got to get plenty of rest, and I've got to eat good food, you know, proper good food. And when there's a day off, you know, it's a good thing to take it easy, you know. So yeah, that's my priority, staying healthy.
Uh-huh. You said you're a mad coffee drinker. How many cups a day do you go for?
Usually two in the morning and then one in mid-afternoon, and then that's it.
Okay, that's not too wild. I thought you might have been like an 8 cup a day kind of person because you might have replaced that
That's
with previous other things in your life, but clearly not.
that's Steve, my tour manager. He's like 6 to 8 cups a day.
Whoa, it's wild.
Hey, I did pick up something in Sydney when I was there. I'll show you. I don't know if you ever seen this, but I have this as well.
Oh, CGP Fuel? No, I didn't know. Is that yours?
Yes, look,
Signature blend?
the Acoustic Coffee Company. It's see, because I have a song called Fuel, right?
Uh-huh.
So CGP Fuel, signature coffee. So, and what is my message is, it's not on this one, but anyway, there you go.
You mentioned you're a big book reader. Any great books you've read recently or are currently reading?
I just finished B.B. King's book called Blues All Around Me, and I related to so much in that book of his early days and my feelings that I've always had about the blues, you know, and because too many people equate the blues with everything so hard, everything's so horrible, and and I'm down and out, and my girl has left me, and I'm blah blah blah, and and I've always thought, the blues is a is a style and a feeling, and it can be whatever you want it to be. I've always felt that, I didn't grow up playing the blues, but I do love it, and I do love certain players. But you know, uh, there's blues in everything I do. It's you can't escape it. But it's not a woe is me blues. It's a yeah, this is the answer blues, kind of thing. And BB King has that same attitude of it, that he hears the the silver lining with every dark cloud that someone's playing about, and that's kind of like a metaphor for life. It's like there's going to be dark clouds, there's going to be hard times, and there's going to be some shit hitting the fan, but always look for the silver lining. Always look for what can I learn from this experience? There's
Mm,
the silver lining, you know?
love that. That reminds me of an idea from Stoic philosophy, which is that you can't control basically anything in your life except for
Uh,
how you respond to things. It's up to you. It's what's in here and what's in here that will drive where you take your life.
Exactly. That's yeah, it's such a wonderful thing. In the AA program, it says we have to accept where we're at, what's going on, how life is, how people are, how your situation. We have to be accepting of it, you know. Otherwise, it's going to drive us crazy, And uh, so I think that, always looking for uh, if things don't go your way, don't go, thinking that the world is against you, or people just don't get you, or whatever, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, this wasn't meant to happen. What can I learn from this? I, you know what I mean? So I
Were
think
you just thinking of the Serenity Prayer? Is that what you were just thinking of with regard to AA?
the serenity prayer is grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. In other words, I can't change you. You know what I mean? I can change me, but I can't change you. And I can change how I respond to you. You know, really, we people, places, and things are the things that drive most people crazy. They want to change. The government should be doing this, and the council should be doing that, and my neighbor should be thinking this way, and blah blah blah. You can't do that. You know, you've got to accept people the way they are. And my brother Phil was really good at that. Yeah, he taught me so much about accepting people exactly as they are, you know.
Hmm. Just to I looked it up while we're talking, just to finish the full statement of the Serenity Prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the
Courage
things
to change
I
the
can,
things I can.
wisdom to know the
Just
difference.
exactly. So there it is behind me.
Ah,
That's the full prayer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You must see that fairly often then. It's not just a decoration, it's like a driving
Written in
inspiration.
here.
Gosh,
Yeah.
amazing. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Maybe a couple other things. I
Okay.
believe you turned 70 this year, correct?
Yes.
That number mean anything to you, or is it just a number?
It means I'm going to really kick some ass this year. That's what it means. Um, well, I'm being shown, but I'm that uh, I'm not healing the way I used to, but I've never broken a bone before. But it just means that I have to be careful, and I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be skydiving, and I'm not going to be hiking up the Kilimanjaro. I'm not going to do any of that, you know. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to take care of my body, and I'm going to rest when I need to, and try to be the most useful tool that I can be.
You're a pretty useful tool, Tommy, I gotta say.
I'm working on it.
Lastly, perhaps, when you're gone, what do you hope to be remembered for?
Um, for for being an example of someone who just followed their instinct and their vision for where they belong. You know, yeah. The reason I'm playing the Opera House is because I believed long before I got there that that's where I should be playing, and I will do whatever work I have to take. I will get there, and there's nothing surer than that. So it's really about um, you have to know where you're supposed to be, I think, and I call that a vision. So my vision is that I'd always wanted to be a concert player, and I knew that's where I belonged. I just didn't know how it was going to happen, how it was going to unfold, and everything. But uh, some people can do it, and others run out of steam too early. You know.
Hmm.
And like, if you said to me, "We're gonna we're gonna we're gonna meet at 7 a.m. in the morning," I'd be there at 10 to 7. So I hate being late for anything. And if you told me to bring $10, I'd bring 100. So that's that kind of attitude is what has always set me on a good path, with people.
Mm, beautiful. And one last thing while I think of it. This thing, what does this mean to you? Just not this particular one, but just this thing in general in the world. What does it mean to you?
What about this thing?
Yeah. What does it mean, Tommy? What's it all for?
Uh, it's a way of me telling you who I really am. It's my way of um, expressing my deepest things inside come out here. So, um, somebody said to me the other day, Have you got your hands insured?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. Of course, I got everything insured." And they said, "What happens if you have an accident and can't play with your hands?" I said, "I'll learn to play with my toes." So
I
that's
hope it
it.
never comes to that. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Tommy, once again.
You
Thank you for
too.
so much of your time and honesty, and I look forward to seeing you play here again in a few months' time in Brisbane.
I appreciate it, brother.